Welcome in. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of perfume and cosmetics distribution management. We've been getting a lot of questions about this career path lately.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are interested in this field.
It's no wonder, right? Who wouldn't want to be surrounded by amazing scents and glamorous products all day? We got some great info from RoleCatcher's career guides to help us break it all down.
Sounds good.
But instead of just summarizing the guide, let's try to bring it to life a little bit. Imagine we're shadowing a perfume and cosmetics distribution manager for a day.
Okay, I like that. Let's step into their world.
Perfect. So it's the start of a new workday. Our distribution manager wakes up. What's the first thing on their agenda?
Well, I'm going to go with coffee.
Definitely. But on a more serious note, their day is really a balancing act.
Oh, how so?
It's a mix of logistics, relationships, and also, this is a big one, staying ahead of the trends.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. When we talk about logistics in the context of perfume and cosmetics, we're talking about more than just boxes on a truck, right? Oh, absolutely. It's about way more than that.
What else is involved?
Think of the entire supply chain as this, carefully choreographed dance.
Okay, interesting analogy.
And it all starts with sourcing those raw ingredients.
Right, so we're talking flowers, essential oils, all those precious materials.
Exactly. A lot of those are sourced globally. So from there, it moves to production, packaging, and then finally, it reaches the customer in the store.
Okay, so you've got this really complex journey.
Our distribution manager is basically the choreographer. They're making sure all those different pieces move smoothly and efficiently.
And if one step is off, that impacts everything else.
Exactly. Even the smallest delay can have this ripple effect throughout the entire chain.
Oh, I bet. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say a key ingredient for a new perfume is held up at customs.
Uh-oh.
That's a problem, right? Our distribution manager has to think fast and find a workaround.
So what do?
They might need to negotiate with suppliers, maybe explore alternative shipping routes, or in some cases, they even have to adjust the entire production schedule.
Wow, that is a lot of pressure. So it's obvious that a deep understanding of the supply chain is critical in this role.
Absolutely.
But what about the relationships aspect that you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier? Who is this distribution manager connecting with on a daily basis?
Oh, they're the ultimate networker.
Haha, I bet.
One minute, they might be on the phone with a supplier, maybe in France, discussing a new shipment of Rose Absolute.
Fancy.
And then the next minute, they're emailing a major department store chain, coordinating the launch of a whole new makeup line.
Okay, so it sounds like they're constantly switching gears. Big picture strategy 1 minute, then nitty-gritty details the next.
Exactly.
So based on that, what qualities or skills are really essential for someone to thrive in this role?
Well, according to RoleCatcher, you got to have strong analytical skills.
Which makes sense because they're working with a lot of data, right?
Yeah. Exactly. They're constantly analyzing data. They're forecasting demand. They have to make sure all of those products are available when and where customers want them.
But it's not just about loving spreadsheets, right? I mean, you mentioned staying ahead of trends, which I imagine is absolutely crucial in the beauty and fragrance industry.
Oh, it's huge.
So how do they do that?
Imagine having to predict what scent is going to be the next big thing, or what new skincare ingredient is going to have everyone buzzing.
Oh, gosh. Talk about pressure.
It's a lot. They have to be really tapped into those emerging trends. They're probably reading tons of industry publications, attending all the trade shows, and, they're definitely scrolling through social media, seeing what all the beauty influencers are talking about.
So it's a really fascinating blend of art, science, and business strategy all rolled into one.
Exactly. Our distribution manager kind of sits right at that intersection.
And they're using their expertise to bring all of those fragrances and beauty products to customers around the world.
Exactly.
Speaking of expertise, RoleCatcher's career guide actually provides a really interesting roadmap for anyone hoping to move up the ranks in this field.
Yeah, it's one thing to know what the job is all about, but it's another thing entirely to understand how you can get there.
Absolutely. So why don't we start by looking at the beginning of that journey? Let's say someone's fresh out of college. Maybe they have a degree in business or supply chain management. What would be a typical entry-level position for them?
Well, RoleCatcher mentions the junior distribution coordinator as a really great starting point.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is where you really start to learn the ropes, get some hands-on experience with inventory management and order processing.
It sounds like a fantastic opportunity to learn the industry from the ground up.
Absolutely.
What are some of the most important skills someone in that role should be focusing on?
Well, attention to detail is Absolutely essential.
Because one little mistake could be costly.
Exactly. Imagine accidentally shipping the wrong fragrance to a department store.
Oh my gosh, that would be a disaster.
Or what if you miscalculate the inventory for a big product launch?
Oh gosh, yeah, that would be bad. Especially in the world of luxury, where reputation is everything.
Exactly. So these early career roles are really all about honing your organizational skills, your analytical skills. You really want to become proficient with inventory software, and of course, be willing to learn from your more experienced colleagues.
Makes perfect sense. But let's say someone has excelled as a junior distribution coordinator for a few years. What's the next step up the ladder for them? And what new challenges and responsibilities come along with it? So they've mastered the basics, they're not mixing up their perfumes anymore. What's the next step up?
This is where things get really interesting. RoleCatcher points to the distribution analyst role as, a natural progression.
Okay, so it's no longer just about executing the tasks. They're actually doing more analysis, right?
Right. Now they're analyzing trends, identifying potential bottlenecks in the supply chain, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And they're even starting to make recommendations for improvement.
Okay, so more responsibility and a chance to really use those analytical muscles.
hmm
What would that look like on like a day-to-day basis?
So imagine diving deep into sales data from the past year.
Okay.
Let's say they noticed that a particular fragrance sold really well during the spring months in coastal cities.
Interesting.
They would then use that insight to forecast demand for the next year, right? So they make sure there's enough product to meet that surge.
That's so interesting. It's like detective work, but instead of solving crimes, they're solving these supply and demand puzzles.
Exactly.
What kind of skills would you say are especially valuable in that distribution analyst role?
Well, data analysis is key, right?
Of course.
They need to be really comfortable working with spreadsheets, interpreting all that data, and then, this is important, spotting those patterns and trends.
Right, because it's not just about looking at a bunch of numbers. You have to be able to find the meaning in all of it.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher also mentions communication skills as being really important at this level.
That makes sense because they're not just crunching numbers in isolation. They have to be able to share their findings with the rest of the team.
Exactly. Imagine having to present your analysis to senior management.
Oh, yeah?
You've got to be able to justify your inventory projections, maybe suggest improvements to the distribution network. That's where strong communication skills are really essential.
It sounds like this is also the stage where someone starts to develop their leadership potential,
Absolutely.
even if they're not quite in a management role officially yet.
Right. They're becoming a thought leader within the organization, someone who can take all that complex data and translate it into actionable insights.
Right. Okay. So they've proven themselves as a distribution analyst. They're crushing it with the data analysis. They're giving amazing presentations. What's next? What does that path to a more senior management role look like?
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. RoleCatcher highlights the importance of those cutting-edge technologies we talked about earlier.
You mean AI and blockchain?
Exactly. They say that as someone moves into a senior distribution manager role, they're going to need to have a really solid understanding of how those technologies are impacting the industry.
So it's all about staying ahead of the curve.
Right, exactly.
We talked a bit about AI earlier, but can you give me an example of how it's actually being used in perfume and cosmetics distribution?
Okay, so imagine a world where you can predict exactly how many bottles of a new fragrance are going to sell in a particular city, but even before it launches.
Wow, that's incredible. How is that even possible?
That's the power of AI.
Wow.
You can use these incredibly sophisticated algorithms to analyze massive amounts of data.
What kind of data?
We're talking past sales figures, demographic information, even things like social media trends, believe it or not.
Wow.
And you can use all of that to predict future demand with incredible accuracy.
So instead of relying on gut feeling or guesswork, our senior distribution manager can make these really strategic, data-driven decisions.
Exactly. And it's not just about predicting demand either. AI can actually be used to optimize delivery routes, manage warehouse automation, and even personalize the customer experience.
Okay, so we're talking about recommending specific products to customers based on what their past purchases, their preferences.
Exactly.
That's amazing. It really seems like AI is completely revolutionizing this entire industry.
It really is.
Now, what about blockchain? We hear that term everywhere these days, but I'm not sure I fully understand how it applies to this industry in particular.
Sure. So blockchain is all about transparency and security.
Okay.
And it's really important for that whole supply chain we talked about.
Right. Especially when you think about sourcing those high-quality ingredients for perfumes and cosmetics.
Exactly. So think about those like luxurious rose fields in Bulgaria or those rare sandalwood forests in India.
I'm picturing it.
With blockchain, you can track every single step of that ingredient's journey, from the farm where it's grown all the way to the production facility.
Wow.
And that means you can verify its authenticity and ensure that, all of the sourcing practices have been ethical.
That's huge.
Right. A senior distribution manager who really understands blockchain can actually use that to assure customers that the products they're buying are ethically sourced and of the highest quality.
And that's a major selling point for a lot of consumers these days.
Oh, absolutely. It also helps combat counterfeiting, which is a really big issue, especially in the luxury goods industry.
That makes sense. So if every single product has this unique, verifiable digital identity because of blockchain, it becomes much harder to pass off fakes as the real deal.
Exactly. So, to reach those upper management levels, you really got to have a deep understanding of how these technologies can be used to improve things.
So you need to be a visionary,
Yeah.
right? Someone who's not afraid to embrace new technologies and push the boundaries a little bit.
Absolutely.
Wow, this is great. Now, I know we also want to talk about the interview process because even with all the right skills and experience, you've got to ace that interview.
Exactly. Luckily, RoleCatcher provides a lot of really helpful information on how to prepare for those interviews.
Perfect. Let's dive into that right after this quick break. All right, so we've talked about the skills, the experience, the technology, but how do you actually land the job?
All right.
Let's talk about the interview process.
Okay.
What kind of questions can someone expect, say, for an entry-level position versus something more senior, like a management role?
Well, RoleCatcher actually gives some good examples.
Oh, perfect.
So for entry level, you're probably going to get questions about your organizational skills, your attention to detail, and, they always want to know you're passionate about the industry.
Makes sense.
So they might ask something like, tell us about a time you had to manage multiple tasks with competing deadlines.
Okay.
How did you prioritize? That kind of thing.
Right, so they want to see if you can handle the fast-paced environment.
Exactly.
Now, what about for a more senior role?
For those higher level positions, you really got to be ready for those big picture strategic questions.
Okay, like what?
Imagine being asked, how do you see AI and blockchain shaping the future of perfume and cosmetics distribution?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Or something like, what's your approach to managing a team and fostering a collaborative work environment?
Those are tough. It's not just about what you know at that point, it's about how you think.
Exactly.
Does RoleCatcher offer any tips on how to prepare for those kinds of questions?
They do. First, they really emphasize the importance of research.
Research, okay.
Yeah, like you really want to understand the company, their brand, their values, where they fit in the market, that kind of thing.
So you can tailor your answers to their specific needs.
Exactly. The second thing they recommend is to practice your answers out loud.
Always good advice.
Right, because it helps you refine your delivery and just sound more confident overall.
Definitely.
And this is where RoleCatcher gets really interesting. They actually have this AI-powered tool.
Oh, tell me more.
It's called RoleCatcher Copilot AI, and it can analyze your practice sessions and give you personalized feedback.
Wait, hold on. AI interview practice. That sounds kind of wild.
I know, right?
So how does it work?
You basically record yourself answering common interview questions.
Okay.
And then their AI analyzes things like your tone, even your body language,
Why not?
the content of your answers, and then it gives you these really specific suggestions for improvement.
So it's almost like having a personal interview coach, but virtual.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who might get a little nervous in those high-pressure situations.
Oh, for sure. It can be a game changer.
This has been fantastic. We've covered so much ground today.
We really have.
We talked about everything from the day-to-day realities of being a perfume and cosmetics distribution manager to the really cutting-edge technologies that are shaping the entire industry.
It's a fascinating field.
It really is. And you know what? For anyone listening who's intrigued by all of this, remember that RoleCatcher has tons of information on this career path.
Yeah, their full guide is definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe we'll be seeing your name on a fragrance launch sometime soon. Thanks for joining us on this fragrant journey. We'll catch you next time.